Oh, hello. We didn't see you there. Welcome to the American Sci-Fi Classics Track. And it is Thursday night. It is time for a quarantine panel. We are going to talk tonight about TV shows that have vampires in them. And as we have debated before we went on the air, these are not just shows that are about the vampires, but if there's vampires on it, it totally counts. So my name is Joe Crowe, and I'm one of your hosts. My other host, my co-director, ladies and gentlemen, straight from the graveyard, right there, one internet to my left, Gary Mitchel. Welcome.
Good evening.
Excellent. And two internets to my left, Lacey.
Hello.
And one internet south of me, welcome Tom. Andrew.
Hey there, and this is my Slayer in training, Estella.
Excellent. Hey. And making her Sci-Fi Classics Track quarantine panel debut, Lucy. Welcome.
Yay! Hi. Nice to see you.
So everybody, tell we'll get. Let's Tom, tell people where you're from. What do you do?
I'm the host of the Good, the Bad, and the Nerdy Movie podcast. It's a regular podcast, and also our sister podcast, the Greatest Movie Never Made podcast. Both are available on pretty much every platform. And we cover all sorts of movies that are either good, bad, or nerdy. And when we talk about movies never made, there's a lot, and it's hilarious. It's basically the as I call it, the Peter Jackson Memorial podcast.
Nice.
Okay. And Lacey, tell people what you do and who you are.
I'm from Atlanta. I work with I work with a family foundation, and for Dragon Con, I work with the charity event staff.
Nice. And Lucy,
I was going to ask, who is the charity this year?
Yeah, who is the charity this year, Lacey?
I'm not sure they've released it yet. I don't want to speak out of school.
Okay.
Maybe later. Just not live.
Well, we'll figure that out later. But Lucy, tell people.
Lucy Blue. I am a senior editor and writer for Falstaff Books out of Charlotte, North Carolina. But I live in Chester, South Carolina, which if you'd ever been there, you'd know that's why I write Gothic horror novels. But I also write Gothic romance. Full disclosure.
Nice.
My name is Lucy, and I write romance novels.
I bet the humidity alone has to write itself.
Yes.
Mm.
Yes.
Oh, I like the meme that goes around that says, "I will make you feel like a Southern night is a threat, not a romantic."
And Gary, you are also a native Carolinian yourself, I believe.
Yes, North Carolina for most of my life, and now I am transplanted to Georgia because statutes of limitation are a thing, and and I also want,
Go ahead.
And I just wanted to say that Lucy's contemporary Michael Williams was supposed to join us, but was unable to. So I am wearing this sleeved A-type shirt, whatever you call it, in his honor, because this is what he almost always wears.
That's his uniform, really. And I, speaking of Falstaff Books, go to their website, buy things. I'm one of their proofreaders.
Oh,
and I believe that I don't know that I've proofread one of yours, but if I have, let me just say, Lucy, your comma use, excellent.
Thank you.
All right, so vampires on television. Was the first one Eddie Munster? I'm sure it goes further back than that, but let's just go around the horn and everybody just you've all got a mental list, and let's or a physical list in some places. I don't know. I don't make notes. Gary, let's start with you. Throw out our first name.
Well, I have to go with the wonderful Jonathan Frid from Dark Shadows.
Yes.
Barnabas Collins, one of the early vampires on TV. was definitely the tragic romantic type. Definitely set the template for a lot of TV vampires, and took a show that was pretty much a middling afternoon soap opera into becoming a cult phenomenon.
Was Dark Shadows not supernaturally supernatural-ish until Barnabas Collins showed up, or am I mistaken?
Yeah, I think it was like
Always
6 months into the series they added Barnabas. So it was,
okay, so early on. All right.
yeah, it was like a live, just standard soap opera. Then they're like, hey, let's throw a vampire in there. Then all of a sudden,
1,200 episodes later.
Lucy, you were going to say?
I was just going to say, yeah, it was kind of God, but I don't remember it all that clearly. Oh, that's not true. Very clearly. I was a little kid when it was first airing in the afternoons. And of course, my parents did not allow me to watch anything horror themed at that point. But my aunt, who was a college student, came to spend the summer with us. And she was not going to miss Barnabas Collins. So very sorry. My mom and dad were at work every day. They didn't know. So I became absolutely obsessed at the age of about 4 or 5. So yeah, that was my first vamp too.
Yeah, my mom told me stories of running home to make sure she got home in time after school to watch it, because it just, there's sex appeal in the vampires, and Barnabas has it. And yeah,
it was just so different from everything else.
Yeah,
too.
Shout out to our friend Jim Beard, who was just on the show promoting his book about Dark Shadows like a couple of weeks ago. But his book is called Rushing Home to Shadows. Anyway, go check that out. He and some other authors wrote a book about being fans of that show. And check that out. I'll put a link in the show notes. Good stuff.
Yeah, but like Tom was saying, it started out as they were throwing stuff at the wall in that era, and it was like, well, let's do a soap opera but gothic. And then someone got the bright idea of adding in Barnabas, and then from there it just spiraled out of control. Eventually there was witches, time travel, werewolves,
Frankenstein.
Frankenstein, people being reborn like centuries later. I mean, it got wacky.
I remember I saw like a couple of episodes here and there. I mean, it was done before I was born, so I ended up catching, a few episodes on like, I don't know, PBS or something, or maybe like BBC America, or some random late night. And I finally found about 10 years ago, they had the full series box set.
Ooh.
And it's 300 DVDs.
Oh my god!
And it comes in like a coffin, and it weighs a ton.
Yeah.
And the thing is, because I always wanted to see more episodes, but I never knew what it was. And then once you got on, like, once Amazon, eBay, and all that kind of stuff came up, it was like trying to piece it together by because sometimes they do a series and sometimes they do it by like one actor, and it was very strange. So finally they came out with like a full series box set, and I keep looking at it over in the corner like, nope, not today. That's 1,232 episodes. I can't do that today.
One storyline would be like 9 months. 9 months
of daily
hour episodes.
It's
I mean,
I was a daily soap opera. Yeah.
I was in college when Sci-Fi was rerunning it, so I would always like. I had class breaks during that time, so it was like, hey, it's lunchtime. I'll put it on. Watch, see where they're up to this point. So, oh, hey, Quentin's finally here, or
it's in color.
Yeah, it's in color.
And then they remade it in the 90s, didn't they? They had like 1 or 2 seasons where it was just like,
NBC did a one Friday night series version, and being, of course, on Friday night, died
quickly canceled.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but I was a nerd, so I watched it. Ben Cross was Barnabas, maybe.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And they've tried to remake it.
Levitt was on it as he was like, I believe he was David Collins.
I think the guy from The Pretender was on it too, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
They've tried to remake it 3 or 4 times, and every time they just can't grab the essence, because as a soap opera, it walked that fine line of camp, but it had enough serious in it that you didn't just like laugh it off like, you know, Batman
Right.
66, which I love, but you know, there's a certain, you can only take that level of camp for so long, and it's a hard needle to thread.
Yeah, which is
It
why
is.
the Johnny Depp movie became very like diehard fans. I have friends who were like, "I'll never." I was like, "Whoa, okay, all right."
Yeah, I went
Yeah, I
to see
actually
it in the
liked the Johnny
theater.
Depp movie because Tim Burton basically just went for the crazy campy side of it, and it's like
Mhm.
it's ridiculous. Let's just accept the fact it's a ridiculous soap opera show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I did not care for the movie.
Nah.
I would
yeah,
love to see someone try to do it. The closest anyone has ever gotten was Passions.
That really is true.
with the possession.
doll.
Yeah, the Devil Doll.
Yeah, the
Timmy!
possession guy, yeah.
Yeah,
Timmy.
I mean, that was a fun soap opera that I got addicted to for about 2
You say
years, and
Timmy?
then it crossed the line as well. Hi.
So, whoop, I hit the wrong button. But yes, Ben Cross, our friend Kevin, jumped in to say that it's on the Tubi, which is basically the only channel I'll watch now. So Dark Shadows is on Tubi for free right now. So check that out
But
if you want to.
But there was something about Jonathan Frid, though. I mean, there was this charisma to him. He had that cool cane. He had the weird hairdo, which my hair will occasionally do sometimes, where he has the 3 bits. But you know, he wasn't what you would call a handsome man, but he had a unique look that just made him compelling.
Yeah, the intensity.
Yeah, which a good vampire needs.
Yes.
You gotta, yeah. So let's move on to Lacey. Who's the first on your list?
Well, we could cycle right into Forever Night.
Yes, please.
Yeah, a little bit of 90s action. I think that's the first one that I saw after knowing that vampires were a thing. Like the first television show that I saw. And then of course Buffy came like right on its heels.
Yeah.
But I remember being opposed to it because I had seen the movie, and originally the main character was
Mr. Rick Springfield. Yeah.
and I was like, how could they make a TV show without Rick? They're gonna, yeah. And then I watched it, and it had every shoulder pad on the planet, and I loved it. So
French Canada.
Just the I mean, like talk about like it could have been any piece of Rick Astley's wardrobe. It was all.
I saw him in concert 2 weeks ago.
Love it.
Springfield or Astley?
Ashley, with, my wife to go see New Kids on the Block, and he was the opener.
Very sweet.
But yeah, everything was like purple and teal, and it was so dark. But so they had to use those bright colors to kind of see the people in the back, like because they tried to go so dark with it. And I have the DVDs, and they're in storage at this point, but I tried to find them and I couldn't. So I went back and watched a few of like just the trailers and stuff. And I was just like, oh, bless your heart. Oh my goodness. Yeah. It's just, I mean, I can't imagine someone coming to it today and being like, that's awesome. But for me, the nostalgia of it is it's just delightful. And I love it.
Well, Lacey, full disclosure, my first ever professional novel writing job, me and another girl wrote the third Forever Night fan fiction, not fan fiction, tie-in novel.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Yes. It was the show was about to be canceled. Everybody knew the show was about to be canceled. It was they moved to USA Network for that third season. They had brought in the other guy. You know, the fandom was completely divided over we love the other guy, we hate the other guy. You know, the guy who was playing the lead didn't want to do it anymore. But they said, okay, but this still has a huge fan base. It's still got a lot of story left to tell. Let's do novels. So that was one of my first fan fiction things. Yeah, that's the other full disclosure. I was writing listserv fan fiction, kids, for that. And I had met this woman, Laura Fargus, who was an attorney, and she was also shortlisted for the National Book Award as a poet, and she wrote Sexy Forever Night fan fiction. And so she finds out that they're going to make do these books. And so she calls a friend who calls a friend who calls a friend and finds out who the editor at Berkeley is of this. And it turned out it was Ginger Buchanan, who, by the way, ended up being Charlene Harris's editor for the Sookie Stackhouse books.
What?
But so she cold calls this woman and says, I have a friend who writes fantastic Forever Night fan fiction. I guarantee you her fan fiction is better than any proposal that you've got. You should look at it. And it's great. I'm going to help her. Then she calls me and says, okay, we have 48 hours to do a proposal for a novel. I said, are you out of your mind? So, if you watch the show, it was always, Nick was solving the crime, right, in the here and now, and then something about it would send him into the past where he would remember, being with Robert E. Lee or whoever. So we did a proposal like that the historical background story had Shakespeare in it.
Oh.
Nick Knight as an actor on the stage at the Globe. And we also had his pivotal point where he stopped being a happy vampire and became an angsty, sad vampire who didn't want to kill people anymore. And so we send in that proposal, and she comes back and she goes, I love it, but jettison all the contemporary stuff. Just do the historical stuff. Do a frame so we can have Natalie in it. But, so that's what we did. And we ended up having the third book. And it was big fun. And we had Shakespeare and Nick Knight the vampire in the same scene doing lines from Hamlet at one another. And we almost killed off our heroine with syphilis. So,
like you do.
Oh my God.
I always loved that show. And as much as I liked Nick, I thought he was a great character. I watched the show for LaCroix.
Yes.
I totally watched it for him.
Yeah.
He was the smooth, the I don't give a damn, reveling in his vampirism vampire that I love.
Yeah.
And his radio sequences as the Night Crawler were always just so good.
Yeah. That's the part of the show that I think would hold up now if they did some kind of reboot or whatever, would be LaCroix and the club and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Lucy, I did not know that story, and I'm so glad that you got to tell it here. It was tremendous. Well, Lacey did Forever Night, so let's go to Lucy. Give us your first one.
Well, like I said, Barnabas Collins a little bit, but I'll tell you the first one that I was old enough to really get. Does anybody but me remember a show called Cliffhanger?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
You're in the right place, Lucy. Yes, we remember those.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Professionals. I forgot. But yeah, I used to watch that show desperately every week, and it ticked me off so badly that only one tiny segment of it was Dracula. And by the way, I'm not over it to this day that show was canceled on a cliffhanger. And this was before fan fiction, so we couldn't go in and fix it.
Yeah. It was like one season, right?
Right.
It was just like one season.
And it was like a summer season. It was like one of the shows they burn off in the summer.
Yeah, it was an anthology. There was that one. There was one, something with Susan Anton.
Yes.
Tremendous.
Yes.
That is,
yeah, right, because it was all genre fiction type stuff.
Well, I made a note, and I'm very excited to go looking for it now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Do you remember it, Tom?
I think I remember seeing reruns, because if it was available for Sci-Fi, they ran it on one night or one day. It was like maybe on because if Automan could get rerun every week, so could I think they could do a Cliffhanger once in a while. So
was this an 80s show, 90s?
Oh, or maybe 70s. I think it was.
the episode I saw definitely looked like Cold Jack era 70s TV.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
So, Tom, let's go to yours. We'll
okay.
move it.
I was a teenager in the 90s, so Fox definitely tried a lot of stuff, and there would be a vampire would show up on the X-Files. But the show that I think was most interesting at the time, although it was only on for like 6 episodes before they canned it, but once again, if it was interesting, Fox would cancel it. That was Kindred the Embrace.
Oh
yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Michael
I'm
Williams thanked you. He wanted to make sure that one got mentioned.
Yeah, I'm a big role player anyway. I have a lot of friends who work for White Wolf, and so I'm familiar working. Just the whole system. The game, the TV show is basically borrowing. Just like another show, True Blood. So I like the idea of the hierarchy, the behind the scenes stuff. It's not just because a lot of these shows are always like you got the one evil vampire, and but that one's more about, it's the way I described these people back then was it's like Goodfellas for vampires.
Right.
Yeah.
I think great description.
Yeah, and that's what they kind of tried to do on Supernatural when they tried to do the first spinoff, which was Bloodlines.
Yeah.
And so they were in Chicago, and they had the 4 families or the 3 families, and then it was a backdoor pilot that just never went anywhere. But that I watched it, and I was like, Kindred. They're doing Kindred.
That's right.
Yeah.
My
Kindred had a lot of people that crossed over onto other vampire shows. Like Shannon Rowe was in there. Brian Thompson was in there. Bridget Branagh was in there. She was on Angel. The other 2 were on Buffy. They've had a lot of folks who ended up in different vampy type shows.
Yeah. I mean, it was a nice little, like, Fox had the advantage they would hot cast anybody, and everybody would then casting agents took a lot of people. I disappointed that the main lead died in that motorcycle accident. Basically, right as the show was being canceled anyway, because his career could have been so much bigger. I think he had such charisma, and there a lot of those kind of like mid-90s brooding actors. I don't think he would have been like in Skeet Ulrich zone, but the point is that guy had a potential. Unfortunately, he died kind of tragically, but that's one of the things I feel like I really wish they could have given it more push. But I mean, if I remember right, Aaron Spelling was behind the show, so if he couldn't get them to keep it on, considering what all he had going on, it kind of shows Fox was bad about canceling stuff that could have had an audience. I mean, the miracle that the X-Files got kept sticking around was fascinating, and I almost wonder if that's the problem.
Back in the olden times, Gary and I worked at around the turn of the century, which now sounds like it was 1,000 years ago. We tracked the cancellation times of all of the Friday night Fox TV shows, and Kindred barely made it. But now the game
episodes
they put on Tuesdays too. That was the other thing. They buried it on like a Tuesday in the.
Come on, guys, Tuesday.
Yeah, it's like Profit, it's like all these like really weird shows they throw on Tuesdays after Melrose Place, which meant the audience would flip over. VR5. It was a strange. Fox would like, hey, well, they greenlight it, and then they would let it die quickly. I think Strange Luck was like the longest one.
Yeah, if it didn't become an immediate X-Files level hit, they would cancel so fast. They would barely give it any time.
And now the ratings, it would be like the top show.
Yeah.
Hashtag RIP Beans Baxter. Okay, let's
and I really loved watching it though and picking out when they would actually use the lore from the game. Like there was this one point where all the Nosferatu looking ones, one of their powers is they're all about being sneaky. And there's this one point where one of the villain characters was in their territory and mouthing off to a guy. He's like, "What are you going to do to me?" And all of a sudden 500 of his friends are around him. He's like, "Oh,
that.
Yeah." What we do in the shadows owes a lot to that show.
Oh yeah.
When like I think maybe the first or second year that I came to Dragon Con, I unknowingly walked into the middle of a Kindred the Embraced LARP.
Oh.
And it was delightful. I was like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I managed to survive. I didn't get bitten. Everything is fine. As far as you know. Okay, so before we get into, I'm sure we'll get into some other stuff on round 2, but somebody in the chat, and I was going to do this anyway, but ladies and gentlemen, Count Chocula.
Yes.
Count Dad.
He doesn't drink blood. He only drinks vegetables.
It works. Yeah, I love it. That was one of those shows that you could just watch hours.
Yeah, Nickelodeon back in the day, man. I would remember they would air Count Chocula and Danger Mouse.
Yeah.
Yes.
Spinoff.
I loved Count Chocula was what was that well, first of all, it had ducks in it, so of course it's good.
Right.
Everything. Thank you, Billy.
It had the Phantom of the Opry.
What?
Yes.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did not remember that.
Yeah, because the Phantom eventually went to Nashville after Dracula actually burned down the opera, so he decided to become the Phantom of the Opry. And they in the comic, they actually did a comic spinoff, because everything had comic tie. He went to Nashville to try to become a country singer and dealt with the Phantom of the Opry there. That would have been season 2 if they got to season 2.
I did not know that either. That's
Wow.
great. But Count Chocula, my gosh, we did an all duck cartoon panel last year at Dragon Con. We're gonna have to. There's so much duck content, ladies and gentlemen. But
we won't duck this one.
Yes.
Oh.
Oh, what, Gary?
Duck flu, baby.
I can't with Gary right now.
Oh no.
Punishment.
It's I'll bring him back eventually. So, skipping his turn, Lacey. Who's next on your list?
Let's see. How about Blood Ties?
Ooh.
Blood Ties.
Blood Ties was cool. I have all the Tanya Huff novel. Well, I think there's like 6 or 7. There's not terribly many, but I really dug it. It was only on for like a season, maybe 22 episodes, 24. But I loved the historical tie-ins. I don't know, like spoiler alert from something that came out in like the early 2000s. But just bringing it back to who he actually turned out to be was one of my favorites. Just throughout. I don't know. Are we spoiling things? Or am I allowed
Sure.
to say?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, it turns out that he was Henry VIII.
Wow.
His son, like, so he was Henry Fitzroy, so that's what the character goes by, Fitzroy. So you see all the kind of history that kind of went. I don't know. I really like history in general. So vampires have always been kind of a way to see what history they bring in. So that was a show that kind of touched on some fun English history.
Let's go to Lucy next.
Well, this wasn't a television series, but it was on TV. The miniseries of Stephen King's Salem's Lot.
Oh, yes.
Bejesus out of me. And my little sister is evil and will go to hell for this someday. I mean, she was little. She was like 8 or 9 years old. And, the big climactic scary scene is when the little brother gets turned into the vamp and scratches on the screen. That little sucker got on a stepladder outside my bedroom window and scratched on the screen in the middle of the night.
I love your sister. That's fantastic.
I said, you better be glad I don't have a stake, because
get your sister on the phone. That is great.
That's awesome. And by the way, she's the one of the 3 that is not a writer who says that, we're just crazy arty people. And she just, she's the serious, sensible one. Right. And stood on a stepladder scratching on my screen.
Snub.
Hilarious. I love it.
But yeah, I really, that was the next vampire thing I remember having a huge impact on me watching it on television.
That is I liked Stephen King's stuff. Whenever they put it on TV, that was cancel everything. We're watching whatever that is. And that was I'd forgotten all about that. Let's go around to Tom.
Okay, sticking with kind of the mid to late 90s, got to cover Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like I mean, say what you will about Josh
In the
Whedon's
name.
status now, the show was epic. I mean, it's, the WB basically, that was their show. I mean, it's like it had so much power, so much cult following, so much beloved. I mean, that's the thing. It's like it was the show that changed a lot of television, I would say, especially of how women were written, action. It really revived action TV in general. A lot of shows wouldn't exist without Buffy later on. I mean, it took what essentially should be a sci-fi network show and gave it a quality budget with some pretty good quality acting, and more importantly, high level writing.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the strengths of Buffy was that it came along as the internet community was birthing, was coming of age as well. It became a thing to watch Buffy and then go online and talk about it,
Right.
like live action, or talk about it on, I don't know, CompuServe while you're watching. But
I mean, that eventually, I mean, it was the dawn of the web, and Buffy chat basically became television without pity, which became a juggernaut of internet nerd culture for a decade.
Yeah.
Indeed. And of course,
was like one of the first ones, but then X-Files was the internet when 5 out of 50 people had the internet at the house. When Buffy came along was right about the time, like you say, when suddenly everybody has it. And
the thing is, like, they had the monster of the season, idea, which is we just keep building to the big bad. The big bad. I mean, it's like it. Yeah. Like X-Files would have your ongoing plot lines too, but Whedon specifically, like, okay, so each season they got to deal with this particular problem, and not every villain was great, but then you have a character like Spike who's supposed to be like a weird random psych, that becomes so popular that it's like, and that's the things, like we're talking vampires, like who do you like better, Angel, or you like Spike, or Drusilla? I mean, I think everybody preferred Spike. Even when Angel got his own series.
I mean, Spike was supposed to be a one and done, and he was just such a great character. They were like, okay, well, we're not killing him, and they kept bringing him back. And I didn't fall into the show until like the 4th season because I'd seen the movie.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And
I openly boycotted it for like 3 seasons. I was like, dang, no. I was very upset about no Luke Perry.
Yeah, and I started while I was working at a hospital, and I went in one night early, and Buffy was on, and it was one of the Halloween episodes, one where they were all dressed up where they were all trapped in the haunted house with the fear demon.
Yeah.
And I was like, I had no idea what I was watching. Yeah, I had no idea what I was watching. It was like 5 or 10 minutes into it, and I'm like, what is this? This is good. And it gets to that end, actual size, and I was like,
yes.
Oh, this is what I've been missing?
I will admit, when Seth Green joined the show, it kind of got me a little more into, okay, this is a little more lighthearted, because visually the first season's way more kind of like too serious. I always thought like they shot it very more cinematic, and once they figured out, hey, we need to put some lights on and let the humor play. I think that's why season 2 got a lot more praise, especially when Angel lost his soul. And then when you get to season 3 with the adding Faith, and the point is they figured out the way to make the show better was to come up with really good other characters. I mean, the mayor is such a crazy villain, but he's also such a disturbing villain.
Yeah.
And we spun out Quark was the principal. He's like,
Lucy.
Sherman,
Well, I was just going to say that, the first season, now I'm a romance novelist, but they leaned a little too heavy on the Angel Buffy relationship through line. You're talking about, I always had one big bad every season, and the big bad the first season was what was
the Master, wasn't it?
The Master.
Right, okay, but
Mark Metcalf.
Whole lot of time worrying about the Master until the last 3 episodes.
The Maestro.
We were really more concerned with, who is this hot guy and why is he giving her? Oh, he's a vampire. Oh, how can she? That kind of stuff. Which I enjoyed it a lot, but it didn't really become, for me, a vampire show until that second season.
Yeah.
And also, you talking about who you like better, Spike or Angel? I think vampire people all like Spike better, and the straight like Angel better, which is why Angel got his own show.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
and the show's
I'm
other
knock on Angel, because Angel itself, once they established the plot line for Angel, it became. I mean, Wolf of Her Heart's just a great, like, are they good guys? Are they bad guys? They're actually they're that perfect. They're the ultimate gray side. And once they figured out, hey, we can have who all they can bring in, and they're not going to have a random Buffy person just make a guest appearance for sweeps, but they did try that a few times. But once they figured out the concept for that show too, it really worked. But I think that was the key. Moving Angel out of Buffy allowed really the show to really evolve.
Agreed.
The number of vampire shows that are detectives. I mean, half of the vampire shows out there are the vampires are detective, like Moonlight, Buffy, Angel, Blood Ties, Forever Night. Like everyone.
Well, it's a good formula to hang it on, because a detective doesn't have to have a straight job.
Right.
Yep.
Work at night.
Yeah, he can work nights. Lacey Moonlight was next on my list. No joke.
Nice.
Well, I was gonna say though, the other strength of Buffy though was the fact that they managed to pretty much every episode turn a growing up as a teenager problem into the monster of the week. Yeah. And they did it. Most of the time it was pretty easy to at least go, oh, I see what they're doing here. They're talking about, peer pressure or whatever, but they didn't beat you about the head and shoulders with it.
Right.
Which again is a fine line to walk, but they
Evils
did
of drinking.
Right. Beer bad is one of the worst episodes.
Yeah.
Show.
I mean, but that's the point.
But,
you get sometimes where they mocking after school specials, but also is like, I think they missed. That's one where they swing for the fences and completely missed. But at the same time, Hush might be one of the single greatest episodes of any television series. And it's such a disturbingly creative single episode with perfect monster, effects. I mean, it's the gentlemen aren't even they're soul vampires. It's
they're not even
they're fairy tales.
And we were talking, and like you were saying earlier about the characters, I think one of the strongest episodes of the show has no real monster in it whatsoever, and it's an episode. If I was going to show someone an episode of Buffy to convince them to watch the show, I would show them Hush, and then I would show them The Body.
Yep.
Oh,
I would also go with the Zeppo.
The Zeppo is very good.
Okay. Would you also?
But The Body only works because of how well that characterization is.
Yeah, that's true. Gary, would you also show people who have not seen Futurama the episode with the dog?
Yes.
Why would you do that?
Take the rest of the show.
Yeah, that episode was so powerful they had to do a whole Futurama movie just fixing it.
I know.
Hey, I can't watch it today.
Jurassic Park. Jurassic Park. So, now we're all crying.
So much. And if you want to, our friends at the, I believe their name, the Urban Fantasy Track is, I believe they do tons of Buffy stuff, all Dragon Con long, and also they do, there's other Buffy events they do. Anyway, look them up this year at Dragon Con. Mm-hmm. There's like a live performance of Once More with Feeling that they usually do, which is tremendous.
Again, well, another one of my favorites.
They got the mustard out.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, there's so much about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
If we're talking ultimate nerdy TV shows, it's in the top 5 of.
Sure.
That Star Trek.
Well, but Buffy, I think, encapsulated a certain moment.
Yeah, that's the problem. Some of those things don't work at all now. Because I tried to show Buffy, I think, to a couple episodes of my son, and he kind of got a little like, and he's a little bit too young for it, but I thought, he might find it amusing. It's just one of the things, like, it's, of the time, it's perfect. But, like I said, there's, as stories that come out of, unfortunately, about the show, we kind of have to acknowledge that, maybe the cast wasn't having a fantastic time.
Is the reboot
Sure.
still on? I heard that it was pushed to 2023, but they're still actively working on the reboot.
That is
what's
the
one of
last
those
I
things.
heard. I
Is
know
Joss
Joss is-
Whedon allowed on it. That's the thing.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. Someone else
Sure.
has taken it over as the showrunner. I forget who they
Mhm.
said it is. But
Yeah.
that's a whole
and
other.
we should put out, a lot of people who were executive producers or the writing staff. They went on to create a bunch of stuff. That show kind of spawned
Yeah.
a lot of like
Yeah.
One thing about
the
Buffy,
majority of the 2000 TV series.
again, with the Buffy reboot, it's one of those things. I'll believe it when they say trailer's coming, or here's the trailer.
I won't believe it till I'm watching the credits.
Exactly. And then maybe watch them a second time just to be sure.
Right.
Yeah, and we should point out that show. I don't know how it survived moving to UPN, but it did. I mean, the thing because I lived in Knoxville, we didn't have UPN for a long period of time. We had it, and then it disappeared. That network just died. So when
UPN,
it left,
of course, the network, not the command.
yes,
Not PN.
but
Gary,
it moved there.
Gary,
and
let's keep moving. Gary, what's next on your list?
Next on my list, we touched on Moonlight, so I'm going to skip that one because we did kind of talk about it. It was a fun little one-series CBS detective cop vampire. It didn't have the sway that Forever Night did, but it was cool. But I'm going to go with another one of our deep cuts from 1990, Dracula the Series.
What?
Yeah.
Yes. It was a fun little Dracula in modern day. Your group of people who find out that Aculard is actually Dracula. And it was a syndicated show. I watched it. It would back to back with Friday the 13th, the series.
Oh,
so every Saturday night on WGHP 8 in North Carolina, I was watching those two shows, and because they came on at like midnight and 1.
yeah,
Nice.
right after SNL. Exactly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it was just a fun show. It was, there was the people who actually know what's going on, and it was a guy and his nephew and another schoolgirl, and of course she's being seduced by Dracula to come to the bloodsucker side, and it was your standard 90s horror syndicated show. It was also up there with Tales from the Dark Side and Monsters, that whole era. And it was just a lot of fun. The guy playing Dracula was obviously having a good time. He had enough charisma for the role, and it was kind of nice to see, how do you fight Dracula modern day? Who's, instead of a Carpathian count, he's running a mega corporation, basically.
Nice. Eventually, you would think someone would, or a Dracula character would stop using Alucard as his alias. Eventually somebody's going to go, "You're Dracula. Aren't you Dracula?"
I loved it in the Monster Squad when his name was Dr. Acula.
Yes.
And so when he wrote it down on the pad, it's spelled.
Yeah, I mean, and that's that is a good Ed Wood tribute right there.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, just like in the Buffy episode with Dracula, it's like Dracula's obsessed with himself. He has to have his, he's got to have his tricks. Like he's got to have his harem because he's.
Sure.
Yeah, and I like the fact, I mean, like I said, Bram Stoker song, the Stoker book, established him in very specific details that are, if you were going to do it, you have to have those details. It's like it's too iconic. It's like,
Fun fact about Dracula and Romania: you cannot find a copy of Bram Stoker's Dracula in Romanian. That's one of the things that I do. If there's a famous book from a place that I go, I always try and get it in that language. And I went with a friend, and we did the entire Dracula tour of Romania and Transylvania, the Carpathian Mountains. We climbed Mount Panari, all the things, and we had like every person that we met, we were having them look in like thrift shops and everywhere else, and you cannot find it. And it's because Vlad the Impaler is like a hero to them. They don't think that they refuse any sort of negative it was really interesting.
Stoker's basically writing a take on Jack the Ripper, for political purposes, and it doesn't translate there. I mean, it does not translate in Transylvania. That's the thing about it. It's like it's
So
It
while
doesn't translate in Transylvania.
Yes.
I see
Gary,
what you did
I'm
there.
hovering
Hey,
over
he
had to
did
say
it.
it.
He
It's
did it, not
Tom.
me.
Tom.
It
I
wasn't
had
me.
to, but see, you repeated it, so
Yes.
Yeah, so
Well, I
it's
wanted to
both-
make sure nobody missed it.
see,
it's
that's
both
the
your
beauty part.
fault. So here's what we're going to do. Instead of talking about your thing, now I'm going to skip over to my thing. And we're going to talk. Lacey, you mentioned Monster Squad, the movie, completely unrelated to that. 20 years earlier, or maybe 10 years earlier, was Monster Squad, the Saturday morning cartoon show.
Yep.
Live action. It was not a cartoon. But it was, strangely enough, this will not surprise anyone. I've been doing a podcast covering this show. It is and I'll put links out. It's on the Batcave podcast. It was created by some of the creators of the Batman 66 show. And it is just goofy slapstick on Saturday morning. The villains are all cheesy villains who were on Love Boat at the time, like New York comedians. And Marty Allen was one of them. Cloris Leachman is
Hello
on it.
there.
Jonathan Harris is, of course, great at everything. But on that show, it started out where the opening credits say they're all wax figures that come to life, that Gopher from Love Boat brings to life to go and fight crime. But then they kind of forget about the whole wax figure thing because that's weird and it doesn't make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, even for Saturday morning, it doesn't make sense.
Right.
Me and my co-host John Drew spent like the first hour of that podcast on the first episode trying to wrap our heads around that. And but they eventually just, okay, they're fine. He's a vampire. And the Count Dracula guy is just the typical Bela Lugosi guy with the, he walks like this with his cloak over his head, over his face. It's goofy as heck. Please check it out. And Lucy, next up.
Okay. Let's see. Next vampire show?
Yeah.
Okay, I've gotten to one that I really didn't like.
Okay.
Vampire Diaries.
Oh,
Okay.
See, I didn't hate it, but I was bored by it because, I mean, it was Beverly Hills 90210, except every once in a while somebody bit somebody.
That's how it's pitched.
Right. And to me, it was more like a Halloween party at a frat house. It just...
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted...
Freak the Vampire Slayer.
It lasted a million years.
It's like 8 seasons, yeah.
Yeah.
With 2 spinoffs.
Spinoffs.
So popular.
Spinoffs, I think the last spinoff just ended.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's so popular that Amazon actually did a thing where you could professionally write fan fiction and sell Amazon for Vampire Diaries.
Mm.
I don't think that lasted very long.
It did not.
But no, yeah, because of course by that time I was writing romance novels that had vampire heroes, and they did sparkle and they were mean and they did bite people and they didn't seduce teenage girls. I swear to God. But of course when that show comes out, everybody's, oh my God, Lucy, you gotta watch this show. You gotta watch this show. You'll love it. You'll love it. You'll love it. It's vampires, but it's like kind of romancy and stuff. And Ian Somerhalder was on Lost is on it. Oh, he's so hot. He's so hot. He's so hot. And so much like, yeah. This is bad. This is I think there's a whole lot of room in the world for the Byronic hero as vampire, but let him be the Byronic hero second and the vampire first. Anyway, that was fun.
I mean,
it
also was the reason that show existed. So, which is the downside.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things where you have the show where every single character is every single surname meant something to the town because it was like a small town. And then they started like season 4 or whatever, they started doing like the flashbacks and the doppelgangers and the great grandmother was played by the same character who and it's just like, oh, I just wanted you to do okay. Well, for something on the background, enjoyable, sure, but it wasn't something that necessarily like. I was not gonna like rush to the TV and watch it live.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
It was a maybe binge watch it over a weekend when I've got other stuff going on when I'm folding my laundry and playing some Scrabble online.
Yeah.
I mean, it's CW,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's like
Like, you just made me laugh out loud.
Awesome. But
But
yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Holder, he did right after Vampire Diaries, he went on to do V Wars, which is like the other side of vampirism, which is like the crazy like chemical strain kind of biological thing. That's kind of an interesting little twist.
As a we're getting closer and closer to the present day, but Guillermo del
Toro.
Guillermo del Toro. Thank you, Gary del Toro. The Strain.
Yep.
The Strain was, according to del Toro, was a reaction to Twilight. And instead of vampires being, it was like the opposite. He set out to make them not attractive, and well, it worked.
It worked
because they had that thing that shot out of their mouths. And Gary, you've got it on your finger right now, I think that. But yeah, that was terrifying. But good show, weird, and Gary has vanished. But
he even said that was part of his. It tied also into Blade 2, where he was tired of it being your vampire boyfriend. He wanted to make them monsters again.
Yeah. I still want them to do 30 Days of Night into a TV show. I want it on like a major network, like a major cable provider, so that they can just go complete like crazy gory. And
I know they made a pilot, or they commissioned a pilot.
Did they make a pilot? All we had was there's just the one movie, right? Yeah.
No, they made a
No, there's two.
Yeah,
there's three. I thought there were three.
There's three.
Okay.
Well, I think the third is actually what the pilot was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's like it's
it's
like
I
think
I
Spike
love
had
the first
plans
one.
for it.
Yeah, I love the first one. The second one, not so much.
Well, it's straight to video. So
was it called?
We're here for TV.
30 additional days of night. Why didn't they call it
Dark Days?
Another 30 days of night.
Another
30 Days Night: Dark Days.
Lacey, what's next for you?
Let's see. I would say we could go Penny Dreadful, or we could go Being Human. Any thoughts?
Being Human. More enjoyable pound for pound than Penny Dreadful.
Well, British or American?
That's what I was gonna say. UK or US? I love the original
US. Werewolf UK.
Oh, that's fair. That's fair. Although I did love Aidan Turner, and I love the fact that they named the character on the US show Aidan after the actor on the UK show. That was kind of cool. Sam Witwer, he's kind of he's played everything. He's played a zombie. He's played a vampire. He's played a werewolf. He's played Doomsday. He's played everything.
He's been the voice of Darth Maul. He's the voice of the Emperor.
Mm-hmm.
He was at Dragon Con with us. He was on the American Sci-Fi Classics track for Smallville last year and said one of the things he wants to do is a return to Being Human and get both casts together.
Yeah.
That would be wild.
On one thing.
That'd be awesome. Yeah. Very cool.
I think the BBC show lasted longer. I know it lasted longer than
it was 5 seasons on the BBC show, but it only had 37 episodes because their seasons are shorter. And the last season didn't have any of the original characters, like any of the original actors. By the time they got to the last season, they had switched over to a new vampire, new werewolf. But the thing that makes me grumpy is that the US version, seasons 1, 2, and 3 are available to purchase on Blu-ray. Season 4, last season, nope, can't find it anywhere. It does not exist. They never released it on DVD or Blu-ray. And as a completist on my shelf. It makes me very sad.
You've got that open spot on your shelf.
Yes, it's just sad. And I've tweeted to like all the people. I mean, all the like USA and all that, whatever. No,
Mm-hmm.
makes me
It's
sad.
probably a rights issue they haven't solved yet. All it takes is one mistake in the background of one episode. Next, like there's
Don't care. I want it.
Yeah, we don't care. Tom, get on it.
Yeah,
Make
fix
the
it,
call,
Tom. It's all you.
It's all on Tom.
Hey, when I used to manage a video store, this was only 10 years ago, I would get those requests for stuff. And I got a lot of people asking why we didn't have a lot of TV series. And I have to remind everybody, when you rent a TV series, you have to disc by disc.
Yep.
One disc don't come back, that series is wasted. And we're getting scratched up because people.
So let's do kind of a lightning round for whatever we have forgotten. I would be remiss if I did not mention Count Chocula. Technically not a series, but he was on TV all the time, and you got to eat his cereal. So he had to spin it. They had the merchandise built in.
I think there was one Halloween special.
Yeah, I mean, look, he made your milk chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
He is delicious. So, Gary.
Well, we did sort of mention the 500-pound gorilla in passing of True Blood and Suge. But the one I want to recommend that people watch was Midnight Mass. Mike Flanagan.
Oh my gosh, yes.
On Netflix was so good in a world where people apparently where there is no vampire fiction.
Yeah, apparently
because vampires are real. But it is a wonderful, wonderful series.
And that's Netflix?
Yes, it is
Midnight Mass.
Spellbinding.
Yeah. Right on.
Last year.
Yeah.
Cool.
Broke my heart twice.
Yeah. It is kind of the essence of binge watching. Like, you've got to see the next episode every but it's also it's top notch. Lacey.
How about Ultraviolet? Did anybody watch that?
It's on my list. I can't find it.
I actually bought the DVD. I actually found a DVD of it on eBay. I'm not super sure that it looks real. It looks like it's not bootleg. So fingers crossed that I didn't help some guy in his basement making money off people that shouldn't. But it looks real. So it is available on DVD. It's not available on Blu-ray. But it's interesting because that's again Stephen Moyer from True Blood was on Ultraviolet, and it was only 6 episodes. It was a UK show, so their seasons are 6 or 10. And of course they only had 6, but it was really cool. It was kind of another
Idris Elba was on that, wasn't he?
Oh, really?
Yeah. And then also I want to say the guy who plays the governor on Walking Dead, I want to say he was in it as well. David, I'm at a loss for his name. But the governor from season 4 of Walking Dead.
Okay.
That guy. I want to say he's in it.
Yeah, 3 and 4.
Maybe. But yeah, that's one that I would that's kind of like a little deep cut that you can drop if and it's a good show, and it's it's an evening if you want to binge watch it. It's
6 episodes.
Oh, Morrissey. Thank you, Lola.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. So Lucy.
Well, I actually kind of liked the first season of The Elephant in the Room, True Blood. Although anybody who is from the South or has lived in the South, as I'm sure we all have since Atlanta, as soon as Stephen Moyer said "sucky" the first time, Danny's sexy baby.
No, I was like, buddy.
He lived in my building when he was on the X-Men show. He lived in my building. He lived across the hall from me.
Cool.
And I have to tell you that every time I got in the elevator, I was terrified that I was going to accidentally be like, "Suck it." I just couldn't. I couldn't. And the thing is that at the same time, Winona Ryder was staying in the apartment below him because she was doing Stranger Things. So it was like there was this possibility of craziness every time I got on the elevator. And so but Stephen Moyer is really super nice. His dogs are super sweet, and he drives the coolest truck ever. It's like this old, I don't want to say because people shouldn't be able to hunt him down. But he's just a super nice guy.
No, well, I have nothing against him. I just want him to stop doing that.
Yeah, please.
But no, I had read the books. I mean, I read like the first 5 of the books in a week because I had the flu, and a friend of mine brought them to me in a garbage bag and said, "But you can't do anything else. Just read these." And so I saw the show, and the first season it was fine. I like the expansion of the Lafayette character. I liked
all because of the act, all because Nassan was that good. They were shocked how.
I liked that they kind of changed a little bit, what the big bad was and that kind of stuff. I felt like they had smartened it up a lot. But then by the second season, very much like my reaction to Vampire Diaries, I'm like, oh, it's going to be that kind of show. That's what everything's going to be about. And I write romance novels. I have no problem with that kind of show, but it just felt like wasted potential.
Yeah, like you, Lucy, write romance novels, and the romance was not good enough on True Blood. I felt the same way. I don't care what artificial construct they use to break up Sookie and Vampire Bill in every single season.
I personally was a huge fan. Yeah, I was a huge fan of Dennis O'Hare's Russell Edgington, especially when he breaks onto the TV show.
Phone book, and I would watch him. He's so amazing.
Yeah, but when he does that whole rant on the TV program and then ends with "What's the weather?" I could watch that scene over and over again.
Yeah.
Every season they went a different direction. I mean, like I think season 2 is the best, but that's because I really liked the specifically the Maynard plotline because I thought it was just so out there wacky. And that's the thing. Like they figured out they could have 2 plot lines and just go for it. But the problem was then you get to season 5 and 6, and they've kind of gotten so far in so many different directions. They did kind of, my wife and I are like, I mean, she loves the show, and we'll talk about like there's some things she can't like if there's. We all know which episode it is when a certain head turning happened. I have to tell her when not to look. But then they took advantage. HBO put the money in the show.
Right. Oh yeah,
they put the money in the show, and I mean Alexander Skarsgård, he kind of stole the show after a while, and and Pam became like the ultimate, snark. So it's like
I'm right. I'm exactly on Team Lola right here with that.
Yeah,
I was like, I gotta finish it now.
Yeah.
By the time we got to that point,
when it comes to the books, though, one of my favorite characters from the first book was Tara, and Tara was a blonde like boutique owner, and so they completely went. And I was really grumped out, like that they completely changed the character. I mean, I don't have a problem with changing like the color of a character, but they changed her whole personality. Like I love the actor Rutina. Is it Wesley? Yeah, she's phenomenal. But I was just like, oh, don't call her Tara. Like Tara, like she was one of my favorite characters from the first show. Now I go back for this. I went back and I watched the first and last episode of Buffy, Angel, True Blood, Vampire Diaries. Like I went and watched the first and last, and the first episode, I completely love her as Tara. Like I was, I liked
They reshot 5 episodes because they had another actress cast. They didn't like her performance. They hired her kind of on a whim and decided to flat out reshoot all of her scenes.
Was the history of the character different, or was it just a different actress playing the same role?
It was the same actress. It was just they didn't change the character.
Oh, okay.
They just her performance. They just thought the other actress wasn't really hitting those notes, and you can see there's a color change in her scenes and those because they shot it with different. They literally changed the film stock.
Yeah,
after the 3rd episode. So
and you were gonna say, Lucy?
I was just gonna say Tara in the first book. I mean, I liked her too. I liked her too, but I understood why they changed her because she is so much the broken magnolia, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Yes.
She does not have a tremendous amount of agency, and she doesn't really develop a whole bunch over the course of that first book. Now she does a little bit more as the series of books goes on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think she would have been a hard character to watch.
Yeah.
Well, I think her
know
interaction with Sookie was what was so different, because
Okay.
when it came to their interaction, they were both kind of in the same position. It was kind of like the damsel or whatever. But when you take the TV version of Tara, who is just like, gonna beat the crap out of anybody who looks at her funny, it's just a completely different dynamic between her and the lead. And so that's the part that kind of made me go, oh. And now, I mean, that was 10 years ago, and now I watched it and I was like, oh, I do love her as Tara. Like, I just, I'm on board.
They left Elvis out because they left a lot of things out of the books because they were just silly for the books.
Right.
And, I mean, that's the case. I think Alan Ball really had ideas he wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I really think if he'd stuck with it being a 5-season series, it probably would have been a little bit better. Yeah. But I think they were the same thing. They were kind of treading water after the 4th season, and HBO didn't want to cancel a successful show. So that's the problem with that show, is the last 3 seasons really could have been combined into
also, the best part about True Blood, of course, is there was a whole race of manimals on that show.
Mm-hmm.
So I confirmed that with Janina Gavinkar at a convention appearance. I was hosting a panel with her, and I said, Manimals. And she goes, what? And I showed her a video of Manimal on YouTube. On the intro, she goes, you know what? We were Manimals. And I said, well, thank you. So, Church of Manimal, ladies and gentlemen. So what
on
else?
that note,
ladies and gentlemen, shut it down. The circle is complete. Thank you.
Thank
Boom.
you.
Right there.
Nice.
But I'm sure that we forgot tons of things. Let us know in the comments. We'll end up having to do another one of these. Currently on TV right now are tremendous vampire shows. Wellington Paranormal, hilarious. It's by Taika Waititi from Thor Ragnarok.
Mm-hmm.
And also the show that it spun off from, of course, What We Do in the Shadows. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Please watch that show. It's delightful.
I mean, the energy vampire concept alone is one of the greatest ideas, because one, he sells it so perfectly, but two, it's such a mundane, perfect description of life in general. There's always an energy vampire, and then we have the emotional vampire.
Oh, yeah.
There's so much.
The fact they were able to get everybody who ever played a big movie vampire to show up for that council sequence.
Except one.
Yeah.
He didn't want it. They reference it. Where's Tom?
It's fine. I got everybody else. It's fine.
Yeah.
That is one of the greatest scenes on TV. You don't even have to watch the show. Just watch
And Wesley, I love they had Wesley Snipes
on video. Yes.
on video in the daylight, because it would. He has to. It's
He's a day walker. Thank you very much.
Look at him showing off again.
It's great.
Yeah.
And there's so much good stuff about.
Honestly, the movie alone was such a great thing for them to go ahead and they ran with it such a different direction. Came up with 3 different vampires, and it's the perfect casting too. Because can you think of anybody better for those parts? I can't. And every time when they got Mark Hamill to show up, it was brilliant. It's the show knows how to take advantage of who they got.
Yes.
Yeah, so much good stuff. But let's do this. Lacey, go.
Well, I was gonna say there's another new one that's supposed to actually premiere on the 10th of June, called First Kill, and it's a Romeo and Juliet kind of spin-off with an LGBT. It's a vampire named Juliet and a vampire hunter named Calliope, and they have a relationship, and they're both trying to figure out how to get their first kill, apparently.
Yes.
So that looks like it's going to be pretty cool, yeah. And it's Netflix on June 10th. Did I say that right?
Yeah, the trailer looks like it's going to be
fun.
Yeah.
It looks like it's going to be pretty fun, yeah.
That is tremendous. I had not seen that yet. So let's do this. Let's go around the horn and everybody tell people where you can be found, where your stuff can be found on the interwebs. We'll start with Tom.
Okay. Like I said, Good, the Bad, and Nerdy Movie Podcast. You can also find us on Facebook. Fans of Good, Bad, Nerdy Movie Pod. Recently, we just did an episode in honor of the late, great. I mean, it was funny. We discussed which one we all had to do Remo Williams as an honor to him. But yeah, so we just did an episode on Remo Williams. The Adventure Begins. And
inappropriately titled Adventure Begins.
Adventure Begins.
But
so we'll have some more episodes coming up soon. Like I said, just check us out there. And also the Greatest Movie Never Made podcast, which is also kind of like the ultimate Guillermo del Toro tribute show.
He'll get around to making them all someday.
That Twitter feed is one that I got so much material out of.
So, Lacey, tell people where they can find you.
I am Lacey Pants in all the places. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the places. I don't have a podcast of my own, but I often...
you will someday.
I guessed on 5 or 6 different ones that, around the pod sphere. So you'll see me in random places. I pop up a lot.
Yeah.
Charles Nelson Riley of podcasts.
Yes.
Yeah.
Someone get her a cravat.
What's his name? The Clay Aiken? Didn't he? He was like on every show at one point, every hosting gig.
So, Lucy, tell people where you can be found.
I can be found at the falstaffbooks.com website. I can be found at my website, which is lucybluewrites.com. I'm always on the Facebooks, much more than I should be. I am on Twitter as lucybluecastle.com. This weekend, if you wanted to actually see me, you could come to Con Carolinas in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Nice.
And John Hartness is my publisher, and he would kill me if I didn't do that one time. This is my book. This is a Southern Gothic book. It's really good. Buy it. Okay.
You got to plug.
What was the title? It was very fast. What was the title?
The title
Hold it up again.
X3, and it is about a plantation house where in 1837 a guy who was the daughter's fiance axe murdered the entire family, and the house has been sitting empty since then. And this guy, who is a horror writer, kind of like if you combine Stephen King and Neil Gaiman, has bought it.
Okay.
And all the ghosts are coming out.
Cool.
And all the ghosts of the town around it are coming out.
Yeah, that can always go well.
Yeah.
It seems like a recipe that nothing could possibly go wrong.
Exactly.
Yes.
Everything's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Again,
Falstaff books.
Books.
And Gary Mitchell.
You can find me here on the Twitter, annoying people of certain political persuasions. You can find me here every other Thursday with that guy right there. And on our Facebook page, DragonCon American Sci-Fi Classics Track. In convention-wise, you will see me at Congregate in July, and then a little underground small convention called DragonCon. You may or may not have heard of it, with that guy. And I have a horror podcast that should be debuting in the next few weeks called A Podcast of Amontillado.
Oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait. But the guests of the show can only do it once.
Yes.
They can
Oh
only
my
We
God,
all
amazing.
everybody up at the end of the episode.
Yep.
Not
Good stuff, guys. Thank you for taking a few minutes out of your weird ass day to, no doubt, weird ass day to come and hang out with us. We will be back very, very soon. Join us semi-daily on our Facebook page at facebook.com/groups/American Sci-Fi Classics. We're on the Instagrams, and this show, if you're not watching us live on YouTube already, it's going to be archived on the YouTubes shortly, so you can watch it at your leisure. And Gary, Lacey,
In 2 weeks, our next episode
Yes.
is Funshine Saturday, where Joe is going to watch some cartoons.
what we're going to do
Yes.
is we're taking a cartoon ad for some year of cartoons that was in a comic book from the 70s, and we're going to me and the guests are all going to watch an episode of whatever cartoon is on that page. And some of those I've never seen, we've never seen. Some of them I haven't seen since I was 7. And I think like Shirt Tales is going to be one of them.
Hey!
It's
Don't
gonna
mess
be-
with the orangutan.
Yes, it's going to be delightful. Anyway, we will see you in 2 weeks for that. Lucy, welcome. You survived your first one. What this means now, though, is that you have a blood oath that you have to be on like 40 more of these. See?
One of us.
One
One of
of
us.
us.
One of us.
But everybody, please join us in 2 weeks when Gary Mitchell will say,
Animate that.
good night, everybody.
Why don't the shirt tails wear pants? Why don't those anthropomorphic animals ever wear